quiet in the box over there. Let me call to order the special town council meeting for Tuesday, March 11th for Mount Pleasant Town Council. Item number 2 is public comment. If you're here to make a public comment, please come forward, give name and address. 2.5 minutes for comment, please. Anyone for public comment?
Hello, my name is Deidre Kennedy, 971 Cliffwood Drive. I just wanted to say we've heard that the town was planning to remove 13 large pine trees on Equestrian Drive due to the roots infiltrating onto the street. And I just wanted to ask that we give this a second look and see if there's some alternatives, because the last thing we need is to remove trees, established trees. From the town. That's not the goal. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else for public comment? All right, public comment will be closed. Item 3, executive session. The chair look for a motion to go into executive session of personnel to consider applications to serve on the Green Commission, legal and contractual, to discuss and take possible action related to a contract for the purchase and sale of real property. Do we have a motion?
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a second? All right. Is there any discussion before the vote? Council may take action on any item, including any subsection of any section listed on an executive session agenda or discussed in an executive session during a properly noticed meeting. All in favor of the motion to go into executive session for the reasons stated, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We will go to executive session. reconvene from executive session. No votes were cast, no action was taken. Do we have a motion to result from our deliberations, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Don Bailey to the Green Commission.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Mr. Bailey is appointed to the Green Commission. Thank you very much. That concludes item 4, post-executive session. Item 5, recognition of the Wando Girls Rugby State Champions. And I believe that would be them right there. Awesome.
All right. Yep. Tonight we're going to recognize our Wando Wahinis. They were crowned our South Carolina state champions. The Wando Wahinis are a Charleston-based girls high school rugby team competing in both South Carolina and North Carolina leagues. The team emphasizes skill development, leadership, and collegiate pathways, welcoming players of all backgrounds who seek to elevate their game. The Wando Rugby Club's Wando Wahinis High School girls rugby team kicked off their winter 2025 season in January and battled through tough competition to finish as state champions.
Wow.
They faced teams from Charleston, Chapin, Greer, Georgia, and North Carolina. The Wahinis showcased grit, teamwork, and a commitment to elevating the game of rugby in South Carolina. Under the leadership of head coach Carrie Golson and an experienced coaching staff including Bill Bell, Butch Setzer, Scott Wilson, and alumna Izzy Irwin, the Wahinis have built a formidable program. This season, team captain Ava Ackerman, who's a senior, backs captain Kennerly Lustig is a junior, and forwards captain Amber Garrett is a junior, have played pivotal roles in shaping a team culture centered on continuous improvement and accountability. Coach Golson emphasizes a philosophy beyond just winning championships. And I quote, "Every match we said, we are elevating the game." Golson explained, "Our focus was on pushing ourselves and each other to new levels. Winning the state championship was a result of that mindset." With their state championship momentum, strong leadership, and commitment to growth, the Wando Wahinis are poised for another standout season. So let's see. I guess I want to recognize our players, Lauren Clements and Abby Hales, Lily James, Chloe Carras, Lily Callahan, Alexis Terpstra, Angie Gregory, Amber Garrett, Ava Ackerman, Kennerly Lustig, Lila Goodwin, Patience Cumby, Kelsey Miller, Emily Parada, Frances Williamson, Natalie Gidso, Softy Kiros, I don't want to say it wrong, and Addison Scott. So that's the team, and congratulations.
Congratulations. Is this for the town? Thank y'all. Look at this. Awesome. Wow.
Hi guys, right here for me, please. 3, 2. Her. And everybody else.
Proud mama.
All the amateurs over there. There we go. Thank y'all. I'm going to sit this right up here. Thank y'all so much. Safe to say it's the first women's rugby state championship, right?
It is
No?
second.
Second?
There was one pre-COVID.
Oh, I didn't remember that. I don't remember anything pre-COVID. I know. That was a different universe. different reality.
Are we going to send you to Australia for training?
Maybe so.
We don't get invited to Sunday Beach.
Well, you can always show up. Where I am on Sunday.
All right. That was item 5 on our agenda. And item 6, if there's no further business for this special town council meeting, we stand adjourned. Order the Town Council meeting for this Tuesday, March 11th. Welcome to Mount Pleasant Town Council to our monthly meeting. It's good to see daylight outside, and even if we had to change the clocks to get it. We will start with a prayer by Chaplain Gibbs, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Mayor Pro Tem Whitley. If everyone would please stand.
May I invite you to pray with me? Dear Lord, we thank you for this day, for this is the day you have made. We ask that you bless this town of Mount Pleasant. We ask that you bless everyone represented here. We ask that you give them wisdom, knowledge, and peace as they go in this meeting. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Item number 3 is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion, please?
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, the agenda is approved. Item 4, public hearings, awards, and presentations. What do we have this evening? Nothing?
No, sir.
Nothing. No. All right. Item 5, approval of the minutes from the January 14 Town Council meeting, February 11 special and regular Town Council meetings, and the January 2025 financial statement. Motion, please.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Item 6 is public comment. If you would like to make a public comment, please come forward, give your name and address, and you will hear the timer, and the town administrator will let you know when your time is up. Thank you. Please
Thank you,
come
Mayor.
when your name is called.
The first speaker, Jansen Strong.
Thank you, everyone. I come to you today with a simple idea. This beautiful town of ours, we have 100,000 people and I think 25 recreational centers. It's quite amazing. But there's one thing that I would really like us to add instead of a 26th, and that's an art center. I feel like that would round out our town a lot better than another recreational center. My original hometown in Michigan is only 15,000, and it doesn't have all the bells and whistles that this town had. Yet it still has an art center, and still has a theater that I was a part of for many years, and my father ran for many years. So I humbly ask you to consider on your next time to consider doing an art center if you have not already. Thank you for your time.
Bob Swain.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, and town staff. My name is Bob Swain, and I live on 1837 Shell Ring Circle in Dunes West. In 1970, a singer named Joe South wrote a song that was made famous by Elvis. I know Mr. Chapman knows that, maybe even the mayor, but the rest of you might be a little too young. It was called Walk a Mile in My Shoes. The saying walk a mile in my shoes means to understand someone else's perspective or experience by considering their feelings, challenges, and circumstances. It emphasizes empathy and encourages people to look at situations from another person's viewpoint before passing judgment or making assumptions. Let's pause on the industrialization and commercialization mixing into our neighborhoods. Tupelo Forest Pepper Tract does not want flex warehouse space, parking storage, or storage facilities in their backyards separated by a 6 or 8 foot barrier. Building 100 apartments 18 months before the proposed roundabout at the intersection of Stockdale and Park West Boulevard only add to traffic chaos when the 3 schools within 2 miles of that intersection are released every day. Faison Road and Park Avenue Boulevard will create a gridlock when the 500,000 square foot distribution center comes online with 103 tractor trailer parking spots across the street from senior living at Merrill Gardens and the Marsh at Carolina Park. You are all elected to take care of our constituents no matter where they live in this town. So before you vote yes tonight, please consider this saying, walk a mile in my shoes, and vote no and pause the industrialization of our neighborhoods. Thank you for your service to the town, and thank you for your consideration.
Mike Van Horn.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Mike Van Horn, Iron Bridge Drive. Last month, I requested that Town Council look at possibly proposed to do a candidate forum to introduce all the 10 candidates for the March 25th election to fill Carl Ritchie's vacated seat. I'm going to take a moment this evening to sit there and express who I am and why I'm running for Mount Pleasant Town Council. My wife Sherry and I, we moved to Mount Pleasant in 2009 with our kids, and we live in Water's Edge, and we enjoy the area quite a bit. As a father of 7 kids and also 9 grandkids, we have a well-blended family, and we thrive in Mount Pleasant. So it's important that we continue to thrive in the environment that we have. I've been the treasurer of our HOA and also the chairman of our ARB committee during that time. I've been in the restaurant business for over 43 years, where I've opened up over 15 restaurants from groundbreaking to grand opening. With that comes a lot of responsibility as far as strategic planning, budgeting, also physical maintenance of P&Ls, and also ensuring that you have the ability to sit there and work with all forms of government and also the public. As a leader, I'd like to continue to do that in Mount Pleasant. I have a solid track record of doing that. As a former County Charleston treasurer candidate, I also ran on the platform to be completely transparent and responsible for everything that we do in the government. I want to continue that to where we have more transparency along the government itself. Whether it be areas of Highway 41 that are discussed as far as, the widening where we're looking to go from 4, 3, 4, or whatever they choose to do, or the phase-on area, making sure that, we deal with the eyesore that we have with the industrial area that's going on there. Traffic mitigation as far as, making sure that we don't have semis going through that area during specific peak periods. I just drove that the other day, and it took me over 10 minutes to get from Costco to make a right onto Highway 17. Just imagine the traffic with all those trucks going through that area, and also the individuals trying to come out of the hospital area as well, trying to make a left onto Phase-on Road. It's a disaster in the making. So again, I want to sit there and be for all neighborhoods, not just one neighborhood. There's individuals that may have voting blocks in certain parts of Mount Pleasant, but I'm a candidate for all of Mount Pleasant. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is I'm the only candidate that's going to sit here and donate my money back to 4 charitable organizations. Those charitable organizations are Make-A-Wish Foundation of South Carolina, St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, and also Just Be the Change, and also Wake Up Carolina. Thank you for your time.
That's all I have, sir.
Is there anyone who wants to speak in public comment who did not have the opportunity to sign up? I know traffic was bad today. All right. Thank you very much. Public comment is closed. Item number 7 is consent agenda items. There are no consent agenda items. Item 8 is planning. Mrs. Reed, if you'll walk us through it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor and council members. We have several items before you tonight. This first one is a text amendment. As we were going through the zoning code update, there were a few things that did not really fit in the zoning code, chapter 156, which you all adopted and finalized in January. So this request is really just to remunerate 2 sections in our code that were in chapter 156. They are not in the newly adopted code. That is the vested rights section and the workforce housing exemption grant.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and just for clarity, as we discussed yesterday in our regular meeting, this is just renumbering the codes. We're not changing. We're not changing what those sections say.
Correct, sir. It is just positioning in our code dose substantive.
Because we have a whole new code, and so the numbers change.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Just wanted everybody to know. All right, we have a motion and a second. We are in discussion. Anyone? Okay. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
First reading, ordinance number 25012.
Okay, the next 2 I'm going to combine 2 and 3. This is an ordinance to annex a property, a little over 11 acres on Venning Road. And next is to amend the Central Mount Pleasant Plan Development. And the thought is to incorporate that 11-acre tract into the PD. You can see it here outlined in blue. It's currently in the county. It's zoned R4, which allows for 4 units an acre in the county. And it is adjacent to Central Mount Pleasant Plan Development. Here you can see an aerial. It is off of Venning. It does back into Laurel Lake subdivision. You can see the Midtown townhomes and then the 4 Mile community. And here in a minute, you can see on the existing conditions why both the commission and the committee did recommend approval of this. And I'll explain that. But there are 3 large towers on this property. They are well over 700-800 feet. They've been there for many years. I think the first one was constructed in 1980. So much of this property is taken up, as you can see, from those 3 towers and the guy wires. That really limits the use of this property, and so we've seen several development proposals over the years that we've talked to several folks, and it's really just not conducive to doing any sort of residential development, any commercial development. You have to maintain clearance for them to go in and maintain those wires to fix the towers, and then you have those fall and drop zones that you have to consider. So the best and highest use that was proposed, and which comes before you tonight, is to do an outdoor storage of that remaining 5+ acres behind the utilities where they can still be maintained. So this is what you're looking at. It would consist of 223 outdoor storage spaces. Again, these are not buildings. This is not a warehouse where you're going to have a building at all. This is going to be all outdoor storage. There's going to be a 25-foot buffer required around the entire perimeter. And I'm going to get into a couple of the conditions here in a minute. So you can see where the access is proposed, and there's a 25-foot buffer proposed there. There is actually a power easement there. And so staff has already recommended, and the applicant is comfortable with moving that that buffer. So you're going to have that easement, and then the buffer is going to fall on the other side of that. So that's already included in this proposal before you. The Planning Commission recommended approval, and they wanted to actually see a path around that lake that you see on the property. The committee reversed that. They recommended that there were some concerns about that, people coming onto the property, walking around. They didn't really think that was appropriate. But what the committee did was say, let's not require a study for that pedestrian path. And I'll go back so you can see that lake again. So we're talking about this lake here. So the commission wanted to see a walking trail around here. And the committee said, you know, we'd rather not see that, but what we do want to see is a 50-foot buffer along Venning Road. Right now, there is a required 10-foot roadside buffer. And then they also wanted to study the potential for additional landscaping on the site. So it comes before you with a recommendation of approval with those planning committee recommendations. And I know the applicant is here, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Move for approval with planning committee recommendations.
Second.
Is that for items 2 and 3, please, just to clarify?
Yeah, so item 2 is a straight approval.
Yes.
And then item 3 is with the planning committee recommendations. Do they need to be separate, or is that appropriate?
Yeah, annexation and amendment. Yeah.
Make them separate, do the annexation
Yes.
first.
Okay.
and
Is the
separate
motion
items.
appropriate, or do they need to be separate?
Take
They need to be
the
separate.
request is to take them separate.
Okay. My apologies. I'll withdraw that and just I'll move to approve item 2, the annexation.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for item number 2, which is the annexation only. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
First reading, ordinance number 25013.
Okay. I move to approve item 3 with the planning committee recommendations.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. We would be in discussion. Yes, sir, Mr. Brownstein.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you pull up the site map again with their proposal? If we do the 50-foot buffer on Venning Road, will that essentially eliminate the triangle of land below the existing access point?
So the 50-foot buffer would be along here. And yeah, I mean, we'd have to consider that area right there. But essentially, instead of the 10-foot required, the committee recommended a 50-foot there.
Yeah, I guess for scale purposes, do you know kind of where that 50-foot buffer might fall on that site?
Well, it's actually pretty far back now that I look at it. So you figure if this is, and pardon my drawing, but if this little hatched area is 25, if you double that, so you figure 50 is going to be more like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to commend Councilman Chapman for coming up with this idea of increasing the buffer, because I think that would be quite jarring for those trees to be taken out from what is a historic road in Mount Pleasant. I guess if they could eliminate that entire triangle, it may reduce any potential conflict with the neighborhood that backs up to it. So that would kind of be my suggestion, is if they could abandon that triangle there, they may be saving themselves a lot of headaches in the long run.
Yes, sir. Mr. Icafani.
Thank you. Is there more of a map view?
I can do a.
May I understand? I guess what I'm thinking, I appreciate well,
Do you want like an aerial like that?
well, where's vending? Okay. I guess what I'm saying is, like, I appreciate the 50-foot buffer on vending, but the buffer isn't buffering. I mean, buffering from the road to buffer from the road. I'd like to see more of that doesn't help the houses. I'd like to see more of a buffer near the houses, but I guess maybe the wires come through there, because by buffering Venning Road, the people driving on the road aren't going to hear or see into the area, but it's the permanent residents that are going to be coming in here saying there's a lot of noise and traffic there. So is the 25-foot buffer for their residents enough, or the guide wires? Why are we protecting the buffer for a road and not the buffer for housing, which is where our residents come in and say this is too loud and too disruptive to my everyday life? Are the guide wires in the way, or does that make sense what I'm saying? Because that looks to be cleared, but that's where the complaint's going to be coming, is those neighbors right there.
There will be that 25-foot perimeter buffer, but it's my understanding, and perhaps somebody from the planning committee can, but it's my understanding it was to increase this buffer here,
Right.
but then everywhere else you are going to have that required 25-foot buffer.
Do they have to put trees up, or what barrier are we creating?
So for any commercial project, you're going to have to maintain 160 inches per acre. In fact, I think I have I have their tree survey. So they'll have to maintain or plant 160 inches per acre. They're going to have to go through our LID program. So they're going to have to meet all those requirements as they move through the development process.
All right, so okay, that's perfect.
There you go.
So there's no just real quick, there's no protection to the backyards of those homes.
There's a buffer. There'll be a
That will be planted?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, a buffer, a 25-foot planted buffer is required along the perimeter. I apologize. Yeah.
Ms. Whitley.
I had not thought of Mr. Brownstein's idea of just sort of leaving this triangle, this upper right triangle. Well, you can, like, the upper right triangle as just natural, as protection for these houses. I think that's a great idea. I mean, as I think I pointed out at committee, we don't have to allow this at all, and so I think that they should be amenable to whatever changes we want to make to protect the neighboring communities. So I don't know if that would be a first reading thing or a second reading thing to make the change that Mr. Brownstein's recommending.
I guess we have to wait till second reading, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Can I draw? When you say triangle, do you mean this right here?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then maintain the entryway where it was, rather than have it be alongside the back of these homes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because the developer's going to have some time till second reading, yes, I definitely want to see how we're protecting that line of homes right there, because those 7 or 8 residents, I'm sure, will be in here at public comment very soon.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons why we already recommended you can't put in that required buffer there. You can't put it where the lines are, and so there's going to be a 25-foot easement that looks right here, and then you're going to have the buffer on the other side of that. So you're going to have 50 feet along that section anyway. You're going to have this cleared area for the overhead power lines, and then you're going to have a 25-foot buffer. Correct, and those will.
Yes, sir. Ms. Chapman.
Just for clarification, with Mr. Icafano's question about why protect the road, is the visibility of what's going to be in the parking. I agree we need to help the residents as well, but you don't know what's going to be parked in there. You could have large vehicles, including RVs. You can have boats with.
I apologize on that. I didn't mean to not protect the road. If we're protecting that, we need to make sure we protect the residents as well. Sorry, I take that back. Yes.
Is it anticipated that this will be lighted at night? This will be a very bright place?
My assumption is that it will be lighted and secured. The applicant can probably speak more to those features if you'd like for him to.
Can we make it brief? Who's the applicant? Just from there we'll do. Is it going to be lighted at night?
I don't think we've gotten that far yet, Mayor.
Okay.
So there would need to be security, as you just suggested. There's not going to be bright lights on it at midnight, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. Because that could be an issue. And I asked the attorney this yesterday, but this precludes any self-storage units, right? There will not be any structures there for mini storage or self-storage or anything.
That's correct. The only structures would be for washing and those sorts of things, but there would be no structures and nothing stored in it. And one thing I want to point out is that any lighting plan would have to be approved through DRB. So they would look at placement, any of those things. They're going to have to look at any sort of lighting, bright lights. So.
And if you'll take this one off and go back
Mm-hmm.
to the one that was there, the one that shows, keep going. There.
There.
All right.
Okay.
So we're talking all pervious parking?
I think so.
Or only some that are pervious?
I think the drive aisles and the parking spaces will be some sort of pervious material that that staff will have to review and approve. But that is my understanding, yes.
Okay. Mr. Pagliarini, I guess I'm asking, will this be in the PD?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Okay, so this isn't straight zoning where we can't do
Right.
conditions. We can do the conditions in the PD.
That's correct, sir. The
Okay.
conditions that have already been proposed by committee or that were originally permitted by Planning Commission committee. And this council can certainly add provisions as long as the applicant is in agreement.
Okay. And where the proposed stormwater pond is that currently wetlands? Is that a low area on the property, or is that just going to be
No.
excavation? Okay.
No.
Any other discussion? Finding this is first reading without amendment. Are we prepared to vote? Yes, sir.
I would just like to, so as a member of the planning committee, so there's been some good thoughts brought up that I didn't necessarily think about. So Ms. Whitley, do you mind? Are you okay with putting this back on the planning committee agenda? I mean, not deferring it, but putting it on the planning committee agenda so we can hash through some of the things that have been brought up.
Prior to the next reading.
Yes, ma'am. All right, thank you.
Okay. So the motion is to approve. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, I'm a no. So that's a 7-1. Motion carries.
First reading ordinance number 25014.
All right, this moves us to item number 4.
Okay.
Another first reading.
Yeah, and I'm going to take 4 and 5 together, so and they will need separate votes. So the first part of this request is to amend the Pepper Tract Plan development, and the second part is to approve an updated impact assessment and conceptual plan. This will sound and look familiar to you. It came to you all recently. It's the Pepper Tract. It's approximately. You can see the rural commercial area here. And if you'll recall, this actually came to you recently for the indoor flex space. And through that process, the indoor flex space was proposed to be right here, which is backs up to these residences. And as they went through the process, there were a lot of comments about it. Why can't it be moved over? And so through the process, because it was considered a substantial change, the applicant pulled the project and started all over and heard the residents, heard committee and council, and is coming back with a new proposal, placing that indoor flex space to this other area over here. So that's what's before you. as far as this particular use, and this was the primary part of this PD amendment. And what it would do was designate this use on this particular 6 acres. So even though this would be allowed in the rural commercial, it would not be allowed in these other rural commercials area. It could only be allowed according to the zoning map on these 6 acres to maintain that distance from the residences. It would have direct access off of Highway 17, as you can see there. Now there would be some interconnectivity, but it would take any traffic off of what was originally going to come through Tupelo Forest Drive. And so it kind of creates that separation that I think the residents were looking for. And so that's what's before you. Because of the additional commercial space, it did trigger an update to the impact assessment. And the Planning Commission looked at this, and these were other parts of the request. So they wanted to remove the outdoor storage provision, which was done. They wanted to create that indoor flex warehouse space on that specific parcel. And just to kind of clarify, this PD already allows storage facilities. It allows a lot of uses. What it didn't necessarily allow, and it wasn't really crystal clear, was can I store a car or you know in these storage spaces. And so that's why the applicant came back, so that to make it crystal clear, because right now he could go into rural commercial and do a storage facility in that rural commercial. So what he's doing is creating this special district for this special use, this flex warehouse where you can store classic cars in this storage facility. So that came through. They did request that the height on that 6 acre tract be limited to 35 feet. Right now it's allowed to go up to 55 feet height. The third part of the Planning Commission's approval was to remove the use of a hospital use from the RC district. They did include other offices like medical offices and things like that, just clarifying some uses. I'm going to get to this buffer in a minute, and then there's a conceptual plan and then the impact assessment. So the buffer in 2018, and I'm going to fast forward just a minute, and then I'll come back to what the committee recommended. In 2018, there was an amendment to this PD, and a condition at that time in 2018 was to do this buffer. And again, this is not now where this proposed use is going to go, but there's still a requirement for this buffer. So at that time, there was a requirement to do a 35-foot buffer with a 6-foot planted berm and a 3-foot fence on it. Now, at that time, a lot of the homes weren't built and there was not a lot of trees or anything planted yet. So over time, since 2015, 2017, those trees, it's overgrown, there's trees there, and it's very green. And so to bring in the soil to build up that berm, you're going to destroy the vegetation that's there. And so the applicant, and with I think staff supports this, the commission and committee supported it, and the residents adjacent support it. They don't want to destroy that vegetation. So what they would ask to do is have that 35-foot buffer, and then instead of the building up the berm and having a 3-foot fence, having an 8-foot masonry wall. And so that's the other request before you. When that went to the Planning Commission, they actually wanted the developer to coordinate with staff to study the potential of a 10 to 12-foot height and still bring that berm in and make the fence taller. What the committee said was, no, we don't want the berm. It's going to destroy that vegetation. And so what the committee recommended all of those same things, but they said include the requirement for the 35-foot buffer with an 8-foot masonry wall, and don't do the berm at all, so that you don't destroy that existing vegetation. So that's how this comes before you, with those amendments, with the new location for the indoor flex space, and this new type of buffer that's adjacent to those residential areas. This includes an impact assessment and conceptual plan, and they've addressed all of those comments and all of those concerns, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Would someone from the planning committee like to, well, let's get a motion first.
I'll move for approval.
Is this on 4 and 5?
Yes, sir.
Second.
Okay.
Were you okay with that, Mr. Parliamentarian, or would you prefer them separate?
These should probably be separate. sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just do it on 4.
I'll just do it on 4. I'll move for approval of item number 4.
All right.
Second.
Thank you. We're in discussion on item number 4. How about planning committee members?
That's
a,
me.
a little background?
Oh, sure.
Mr. Motion Maker there?
Well, first of all, I want to commend the developer for agreeing to shift the space and for agreeing to come back with a much improved proposal. Second, we've also worked with the neighborhood, which is a key thing to me, that he went and worked with the neighborhood, and these changes that we've come up with are in compliance with what the neighborhood would like. And certainly the buffer being 35 feet with the trees not being cut down at all is a really good compromise, I think. So that's why we came up with those suggestions. And since there is a requirement for the physical buffer as part of what's going on, it's the smallest space that's being damaged in terms of the trees and the other plantings in the area. So it's a compromise in a lot of issues for this change, and certainly having that storage of those vehicles inside helps us in terms of visibility being protected.
Okay. Any other discussion? Did I understand right, Ms. Reed, that part of these recommendations also is taking out that could be used for a hospital, which has been in.
Correct.
Do we know when this plan development agreement was entered into?
So it was adopted in the county in 2001. It was annexed and brought into the town in 2011, and there's been subsequent amendments.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So by doing this, and I'm asking the members of the committee who spent more time on this, we are taking away or agreeing to, not forcibly taking that, sounds terrible, but they are removing with the neighbor's consent uses that they wouldn't want, like removal of a hospital use, removal of other storage, right? And buildings from 55 feet down to 35 feet. So we are doing better by doing this than leaving it the way it was.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Mayor, as you know, since the 2011 time, we now have a hospital in the area.
That's right.
So,
Okay. All right. We have a motion to approve item 4. This is the amendment to the Pepper Track Plan Development Ordinance. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
First reading ordinance number 25015.
All right. This brings us to the updated impact assessment and conceptual plan.
And that's all part of it. They basically just had
Move to approve.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the impact assessment plan? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 6, please.
Move for approval on items 6 and 7.
Second.
Okay, 6 and 7. We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
First reading of ordinances 25016 and 25017.
This moves us to section B, old business. This is Patriots Point.
I'd like to move to defer items 1 and 2 back to committee. Second.
All right.
And would you like me to explain?
Now that we have a second, yes, go ahead.
So I think that we need a little bit more time with this as a committee. We have focused on sort of like top 5 differences between this plan development and the Waterfront Gateway District, but there are additional differences between the two plans. It was not a simple cut and paste job, and I would love to see the differences. beyond the sort of 5 that we were shown kind of in the table, if that makes sense. Because I believe there's something to do with parking being all on site versus 700 feet off site. There were just a couple different things that we had some questions on that we want to take a look at a little further.
Okay. And so this would also obviously be on the committee's agenda
Yes.
At the next committee day. All right, the motion is to defer. It has been seconded. Yes, sir.
I've got a couple questions. What is this is for questions for planning or questions for the applicant? Just out of
For
curiosity.
planning, because I think we would like to see kind of like a side by side comparison between the differences between, because I think there's some additional differences between them that have not been highlighted for the public or for us, and we would like to take a deeper look.
Okay. I guess I also asked if planning's going to be looking at this. I think there's discussion on the amount of housing that goes into this unit as well. I mean, I just don't know. I don't know how many times we're going to send it back, but I think so. They have the right at 12 housing units. Is that correct on that?
So under the current waterfront gateway for housing, they're allowed 12 units an acre.
For how many acres?
30.
30 acres.
A little over 30.
Okay. And then how many are they proposing on this?
So this is what the March 3rd committee recommended, was no more than 130. And then this is their updated plan development document. They've agreed to all those conditions, but they have requested 8 units an acre instead of 12.
I think on the last council meeting, they said they're walking, if it's not 8 units an acre, they're just going back to the 12 units an acre, just to be, I guess I just want to clarify what, well, I mean, I hear everybody, it's easy to say I'm a no vote if it's not 2 units an acre, but a no vote because you want 2 units an acre is a yes vote to 12 units an acre because they have the right to do 12 units an acre. So it's going to be easy to state on council to say, hey, don't look at me, I wanted 2 units an acre, but a vote to try to put 2 units an acre is a vote to also put 12 units an acre in because they have the right at 12 units an acre, and the negotiation happened if that's happened in the public, and their negotiation is to 8 units an acre. I just wanted to be clear on that, just so everybody's kind of aware. I mean, if you try to push for 2, you're getting 12, and they have that right. So that's just want to be clear on that. They have 12 units an acre, right? I mean, okay. Can't change zoning. Can change the zoning.
Well,
that's
all
how
right.
we get
Yes,
sued and lose.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Brownstein.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do share some of Councilman Icofano's concerns. I guess my fear is that the longer that this is prolonged, it sort of incentivizes the developer to develop under the straight zoning, which would result in up to 12 units per acre. I think that, it was the town who approached him to change the zoning to the site. I think we're fortunate that he is willing to make some concessions on it. It's bounced back and forth a couple of times. I guess it's the kind of the first I've heard of the parking issue. So I guess my question is, what's the issue with the parking? And maybe Ms. Reed could fill us in on the parking requirement and whether that's any different than what's required by the straight zoning.
Well, the waterfront gateway it's shared parking for the mixed use development. So we would look at it as a whole, but then we'll look as they phase in to make sure that they meet all those requirements. I know overall they've got 1,730 spaces. I'm not familiar with it. I may have missed something on this 7. I'm not sure about that.
I think that there was something in there that said that they could utilize parking as up to 700 feet off-site, like there could be off-site parking that's not contained within that property, so they can rely on other parking?
No, all parking will be contained within this 30 acres.
So I think,
Unless I'm,
yeah, and then
no,
there was also some concern about the DRB going back to DRB. So I think I think there's just questions that some of
Okay.
us have on the committee.
Sure.
And people, like I would,
Okay.
and we can meet, prior to the meeting to kind of talk through those a little bit further. But
Okay.
I think,
Sure.
I think that there's concerns about the location of the parking, the ability to substitute, palm trees for hardwood trees and canopy trees. I know we had talked about there being a mix of trees, but there might be I think there's some language in there that could result in maybe less shade trees. There's just been some issues and I think we've focused on sort of, like we said, the top 5 differences between Waterfront Gateway and the proposal. And I think that for me personally, I would like to see the rest of the differences, right? Of kind of what maybe isn't coming to the surface in these meetings, but is potentially impactful to how the property is developed.
Okay.
Okay. So the motion is
I've got one more statement. I should learn to keep my mouth shut, I guess. But there used to be a sign that said "Come on over," but now the sign's going to say, "Come on, this is a bad place to do business. We've got to stop running businesses through the ringer here." I'm sorry, and for that I'll be a no on the deferral. We're trying to get businesses in tax revenue so that our taxes don't go up. We're going to chase every business off out of Mount Pleasant, personally.
Mr. Rambo.
So since you brought it up, it's actually a great point about how tax revenue would work with this. So they don't have, they're on state property, so they would not be paying property tax. So most of but most of the town's revenue is going to come from business licenses or heads and beds, sales tax, accommodations tax. I'm not sure what tax revenue we would even receive from residential units. Residential units, there's no business license, there's no anything. What tax revenue do we get from residential units? Just property tax. This does not have property tax. So I don't see how you're increasing the burden, but you're not actually paying for that burden, actually.
Which is why I'm saying 8 units an acre, not the 12 they're going to put when they back out of this.
I'm a little confused in that there's a push on this council to be more transparent and have 3 readings on things, and here we're hearing some balking at taking it back to the committee that was charged with this so they can get it right. So I'm not, there's a lot of mixed messages going on, but I tend to vote with the committee that's doing the heavy lifting on this, and there's nothing wrong with getting it right. And I'm sure the developers in Patriots Point would feel the same way. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. All right. Yes, sir. Mr. Chapman.
And Mayor, first of all, we have had a very good working relationship with the developer of Patriots Annex. We have gotten a lot done trying to work together on the items that are important to our residents. And while this is certainly going to be a great project for visitors, it's also going to be a great project for our residents because of the open space we're getting, because of the walkways we're getting, because of the heights that we've agreed to in terms of reducing the height so you can see the water. So I don't want this to be seen as us against them. It's been a very good working relationship from the beginning. And as far as the ability to be flexible, I think the committee has been flexible and the developer has been flexible. But we also want to be able to do our negotiations in public. And that's what we've been doing. That's what we've been doing from the start. And again, the developer has been very willing to do that with us to come up with the best project available. To wait one more month to get some things done right for everybody. And it may be that we have to give up something to gain something. We've done that from the beginning in our negotiations with this. So I don't want this to be seen as us against them, because we've done something with this project that, from my time on council and also 8 years when I was with the Planning Commission, we've done the negotiations in public, not behind the scenes. So the public has the right, and they have been able to see every bit of negotiations that we had. So one more month to get some things done that might impact this in the long run, and to do it right, I think is the right thing to do.
Well said.
All right, so the motion is to defer items 6 and 7 I'm sorry, items 1 and 2. I'm looking up the page. Thank you. Items 1 and 2, it'll go to the planning committee, and then anticipated to be back here next month. We'll do the vote. All in favor of the motion to defer, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries 5-2. I mean 6. How many was that? 6-2. Okay. That should complete council old business. Item 2, this moves us to section 9, committee action items. There are no committee action items. 10 is council new business, first reading of an ordinance approving a grant of perpetual easement and title to water and wastewater systems and grants of easement to Mount Pleasant Waterworks. This is related to what they need for our waterfront park project. Want to make the motion?
Yeah, move to approve.
Okay. We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
First reading ordinance number 25018.
Item 2 is a resolution authorizing a law enforcement mutual aid agreement between the town of Mount Pleasant and Charleston County Aviation Authority. This is mutual aid only. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution 25031.
Section B, old business, final reading, an ordinance to authorize approval of grant of right-of-way to South Carolina Department of Transportation. This is at Long Point and Needle Rush. This right-of-way already exists. We are just transferring it to the proper authority to hold it.
Second.
There is no new right-of-way being acquired at Needle Rush and Long Point, so social media can take a breather on that one. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Final reading ordinance number 25011.
Item 11 is adjourned. So if there's no further business before this council, we stand adjourned.